So we're now back home and in the garage section, and this is the collection from the bees at home and the bees down on the farm. So we've got these boxes here are full of honey ready for extraction, and I'll just show you a couple of frames of what they look like, just so you can see. That's exactly what we were looking for. Most of the frame has been capped by the bees. There's a beautiful side to the frame. And what we'll do now, we'll start taking this honey indoors and going through the extraction process. So here we are in the kitchen, and Laura's going to do a demonstration of what we're going to do with the first frame of honey for you, and we'll take you through the whole process until we jar up that honey. So here we go. It's now going to go across to the uncapping section. So our first job now is to uncap, and we use two gadgets for this. One's an uncapping roller, and that breaks open the comb itself, because we've got to remove most of the wax off each side of the frame. So this takes a little while to do. So you can imagine if we got, as we have today, we've got about 40 frames to do. This is an all-day job. So once that's completed, we then have to scrape the comb open. This doesn't actually damage the cells very much, and when we put these frames back into the hive, the bees will spend the next day or so repairing the damage, and will actually, you could take a frame out the following day and you wouldn't even known that it's had any damage at all. They will then either prepare it according to where we put it in the hive. If it goes in the bottom of the hive, they'll prepare it ready for the queen to lay eggs into. But normally with honey frames, we'll drop these honey frames into the top of the hive, and they will start the process all over again of filling up those with honey. The next process is to just clean the frames up. That's removing any excess comb that the bees have put everywhere, as they often do on all these frames. So we just take that off, and this is all beeswax, and again this won't be wasted. This will all be put into the wax melter for when we're making more candles. With that process completed, we now have two frames ready to go into the extractor, and our particular extractor is a hand extractor, unlike the commercial ones which will fit about 40 frames. This one will just fit 2 frames. So one will go either side, and obviously being spun centrally, we've got to make sure they go in evenly, otherwise they will fly all over the place when we're trying to spin them. So here we go. So one side's now been spun, and if you look inside the drum, you can actually see all the honey is now spun, and the wax has spun to the outside of the drum. And all we're going to do now is to repeat the process by just turning over each one of the frames. So that's the end of the spinning process, and now the frames, which we're weighing about 2 to 3 kilograms in weight, will now be down to about half a kilogram. And if you look inside the comb now, most of the honey has now disappeared and the comb is fairly dry. Now we're not too worried about honey being left in the comb, because these frames will go back onto the hive and the bees will tidy them up and start refilling them again. So we just extracted 4 frames of honey, and as you can see from the bottom of the barrel, that's as much as we can do, and now's the time to do our one filtering process. And we have to empty this barrel into another bucket, and on that bucket, sitting on the top of that bucket, will be this filter here, and this is the only filter we actually use. It's not a very dense filter, and again, there are particles which will pass through that, which goes into your honey pot, but we only believe in the one filter so that you get as much goodness as you possibly can out of the honey. So the filter fits into the top of the bucket like so, and then we're going to just place the drum onto the top of the chair like so, so that the tap is over the top. And again, we can just undo the tap like so, and then let the honey come through. It's a fairly slow process because the honey is quite thick, and it'll take about 24 hours for the honey to filter through the gauze. But as you can see, in this process, you can see what's coming out through the tap. You've got bits of wax, bits of pollen, and other odd bits and pieces along with the honey, but it's just a joy to see that honey flow for the first time. So I'll just tip the thing on its side just a little bit, and that'll just help it pour out a little faster. So you can hear from the process that there's honey already passing through the fine gauze and into the bucket beneath.